So Canon have just announced the brand new Canon R6V, and this camera looks absolutely incredible for the price. It's coming in at £2,400 on the Canon store, and as an R6 Mark III and Canon C50 owner, what are my thoughts on it? Will I pick this up? Will I replace one of my R6 Mark IIIs or C50 with the R6V? There's a few things about this camera that obviously I think that look absolutely amazing, but there's actually a few things on it as well that have actually made me think I'm kind of glad I went with the C50 and the R6 Mark III. Anyway, looking at the actual specs on the R6V, it is literally the exact same as the C50 and the Canon R6 Mark III. It has a 32.5 megapixel sensor. It can shoot in 7K open gate RAW. It can shoot 4K 120 frames per second. It can shoot in C-Log 2. There's a few little differences which we will get into in a minute. And if this came out at the same time as them cameras, I still think I would have chose the R6 Mark III and the Canon C50 for my workflow. Let's talk about the C50 first. Now, it's not got as big as a fan as the C50, so I think I saw a YouTuber's video where it did actually overheat while filming because the fan didn't kick in properly. I've never had that issue at all at the minute with the C50. Bearing in mind, I have used it mainly in the winter in England, but I've not had that issue one bit. The R6 Mark III has been close to overheating for me. It does look different and it does look nice, the V body. I personally like the look of the C50 more, but the biggest difference between the two is obviously the price point. So it's £900 cheaper for the R6V than the Canon C50, and at the minute the C50 is actually on sale on the Canon store by £300, so it's actually only £600 cheaper than the Canon C50. But the biggest difference between the Canon C50 and the R6V is the XLR top handle. For £900, is that worth it over to get the C50 on? Well, if you're a professional videographer who uses XLR microphones, like at the minute I'm using it now to record on my Sennheiser MKE600, and I use it all the time for XLR audio, and XLR audio is the way to go. If you're doing professional productions, you need XLR audio because the R6V just has a 3.5mm jack. Now, like I said, if you are just a YouTuber, content creator, 3.5mm jack is fine. You can use your lav mics, you can use some really nice shotgun mics as well. It's just the industry standard to have the XLR microphones when you are doing your productions for like professional interviews, for example. However, it's not just that good for the XLR top handle because it also has a record button on it as well. I love handheld shooting and I love that top handle record button. Now, people might say, well, it's not a good handheld camera because the C50 doesn't have IBIS, and this does have IBIS. Everyone was crying out for Canon to, why isn't there IBIS in the Canon C50? And I was one of them people. I wanted IBIS in the C50, but after using it for about 5 months now, and the R6 Mark III, because the R6 Mark III has IBIS, I much prefer not having IBIS in my Canon C50, and I'm glad it doesn't have it. Now, that is mainly because Canon doesn't have the best in-body image stabilization. Sony, on the other hand, have amazing stabilization. If I had Sony's IBIS in the R6 Mark III, then I would be like, why didn't the C50 have it? But because the R6 Mark III's IBIS isn't the best, and I'd imagine it'd be the same in the R6V, I'm glad it doesn't have IBIS in the C50 because you can rig it out. I've done some tests on it. I've got a video if you want to go check it out, the IBIS test between the C50 and the R6 III. If you rig it out with a V-mount battery, a monitor on top and make it heavy, it looks nice, it looks stable, and it looks natural. That's the one thing, especially if you're doing like documentaries, weddings, you want it to look natural, you want it to look really nice and stable, and IBIS just gives it that warp jello effect, and I just much prefer the natural look of no IBIS in my C50. And as long as you pair it with an IS lens, you're literally fine. Honestly, I don't think you need anything more than an IS lens. Unfortunately, I've said this before, I don't like it that the new VCM prime lenses don't have IBIS because you only have to rely on a heavy rig or digital IS. Now, digital IS, I've done some tests as well. It's not the worst in the world. It's not perfect, but it can be usable in certain scenarios. But obviously, ideally, you want to use an IS lens. The C50, in my opinion, is a better handheld camera because of that top handle. Not only do you get the XLR top handle, but you get that handheld look to rig it out on. It's not my gimbal camera because of the XLR top handle, literally specifically for that reason. That's just my opinion anyway, but is it worth £900 more to get the XLR top handle? Well, like I said, if you're doing professional productions and you're charging a lot of money here and there, I do think it's worth it because it's going to pay for itself back over time. And not only are you getting the XLR top handle, but like I said, you're getting a bigger fan, but you're also getting the cinema menus as well. Now, a lot of people don't really like the cinema menus because they can be quite confusing and a lot to learn. I do like the cinema menus, I like the layout a lot more, but not only that, the Canon C50 has shutter angle. Now, shutter angle, you might think, well, that's just a lazy easy way to set up your settings, because all you need to do is double your shutter speed. But the amount of times when you are on set and you're changing from 50p to 100p back to 25p, and you're in the moment trying to get these shots very, very quickly. Well, on the C50, all you have to do if you set up a custom mode, I've actually got it where as soon as I click menu on the actual camera itself, you go across and then I can change the frame rate within 2 clicks, and then I'm ready to shoot again. I don't have to change my settings. It's just, again, one of the more professional features that should be on the R6V, especially with it being a video-centric camera. They should have included shutter angle in the R6V, and that's just another win for the C50 in my opinion. It also has anamorphic D-squeeze in the Canon C50 as well. Anamorphic D-squeeze is basically when you put an anamorphic lens on the camera, it automatically de-squeezes it in the camera, so you can see what you're actually filming. You don't have to use a monitor. And it also has a dedicated timecode port on the side as well, which is crucial again for higher end productions, because if you want to sync up multiple cameras, timecode is definitely the way to do it. But to be honest, they're actually the only main differences between the R6V and the Canon C50, which it doesn't actually sound a lot, but it is mainly due to that top handle. That was one of the main selling points for the Canon C50 for me. I absolutely love it so much. For the majority of people out there, I do think you should just go for the R6V, because it is literally the exact same camera, just without the XLR top handle. If you are a creator, YouTuber who doesn't really do a lot of high-end productions, and you use lav mics and you use like just normal shotgun mics, you don't need the XLR top handle. The R6V is definitely worth it for creators like that. For £1,000 or £900, £600 cheaper now with the C50 is on sale. You can get a really nice lens with that to pair with your R6V. But the R6V versus the R6 Mark III, I feel like this is the more interesting one in my opinion, because it's only £400 cheaper. Well, I say only, that's a lot of money. Is it worth getting it over the Canon R6 Mark III? Now, the main differences between the R6 Mark III and R6V is, for starters, the R6 Mark III, if you're a photography shooter or do 50% photography, 50% video, the R6 Mark III is the much better choice. And that's mainly due because it has a viewfinder and a mechanical shutter. Now, mechanical shutter I think is really important. I much prefer mechanical shutter when I take my photos. It just, you get less of that flickering, you get less of that banding. The biggest one is the viewfinder. Now, a lot of people say the viewfinder's pointless, they don't use it, they just look at the back of the camera. And a lot of old school photographers say you can tell if someone's a video first shooter or a new photographer because they just look at the screen when they take their photos rather than using the viewfinder. Especially out in the sun, a viewfinder is a no-brainer. It is so helpful to see your settings, it's so helpful to see obviously your composition, and it is just really, really nice. You can get really nice stable shots as well, because you've got 3 points of contact, one on your eye and then your 2 hands. The viewfinder is just a must-have for photography, and a lot of people as well, I don't really do this loads, but it can be helpful for video as well. If you're just want 3 points of contact, and if you don't have a monitor outside and you can't see the screen because of the sun, using a viewfinder is actually really helpful to get some stable shots, but also just to be able to see what you're doing as well. Also, the R6 Mark III doesn't have a fan, so it is going to overheat, and I have not had it overheat on me yet, but I have had the bar go up quite a lot, and I have seen it for people overheating when you are in them higher codecs and maybe shooting in open gate as well. So you've got to basically weigh it down. If you're a video shooter first, the R6V is probably the better buy, because it's literally the same camera apart from it has a fan, and obviously there's no viewfinder, and it's £400 cheaper, so you can put that towards another lens. But if you do any sort of photography at all, I do recommend just going with the R6 Mark III, obviously mainly because, like I said, of that viewfinder. I don't really know much else of the differences. Obviously the body design is different as well. If I was to pick between them two, I would still probably go with the R6 Mark III because of the viewfinder. Canon are absolutely popping in 2025 and 2026, and I can't wait to see what they can do more in the future, because will they release like an R5 version of this, an R5V? We'll just have to wait and see, because that is really, really interesting, and I love what Canon are doing. Will you be picking up the R6V, or would you rather be sticking with the R6 III or the Canon C50? So leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.